Okay. This course is known as Operations Research or Engineering Management or Quantitative Approach. Operations Research aims to explain and to solve the problems of management using quantitative methods. This course concerns the decision making process in a various fields: public sector, business, defense, various sectors. Allow this course to take an optimal decision, putting into account the problem of scarcity. We will try to cover the syllabus of this course, and the syllabus should be divided into two branches. One of them is theoretical approach and practical approach. The theoretical approach consists of conceptual aspects of this course. The practical one concerns of the application of the theoretical approach practically, of course using various mathematical methods, including mathematics, various quantitative methods including mathematics, statistics, and theory of probability. So, I would like you to focus or to center on that fact. Operations research aims to determine an optimal solution with applying the quantitative approaches. Operation research, the roots of operation research goes back to the Second World War in 19 centuries 40. The first target of designing operation research aims to use it in the sphere of defense. Later, the scientists converted the military features of operation research to civilian, using these applications or its conceptual aspect in the sphere of civil services. We need to collect the theoretical approach and practical approach as the package to understand the outlines of operations research. This additional slide is a substitution of the one which we lost it, caused by technical deficiency. These are the main topics of operations research. So we are talking about the contents of operations research. Engineering management, history of operational research, اللي هي تاريخ evolution of operations research، تاريخ وتطور علم بحوث العمليات. The definition of operational research in England, operational research. Features of operational research، خصائص بحوث العمليات. Scope of operational research، الإطار spectrum of operations research. Methodology approaches of OR، الميثودولوجي أساليب البحوث العمليات. Tools and techniques، operations research and management decision making. Now please pay attention to the difference between decision making and decision taking. Decision making is a process, while decision taking is an event. Decision taking is a harvest of decision making process. صناعة القرار is differ from اتخاذ القرار. صناعة القرار تختلف من اتخاذ القرار. الديسيجن ميكنج احنا نعتبره عملية، انما اتخاذ القرار هو حدث، an event. Also there are some constraints, restrictions and limitations of operation research. Now, we hope to cover this syllabus during this the current semester. We'll try our best to cover it. OR is a systematic and analytical approach to decision making and problem solving. Yeah. OR two sides. It creates a decision and recommend a solution. So the main function of OR is to make a decision and to solve a problem. هو مدخل بحوث العمليات، هي مدخل لاتخاذ القرار وحل المشكلة. is a branch of applied mathematics. And we can consider operation research as the one of branches of applied mathematics. علم الرياضيات التطبيقية. This is a field that uses techniques and statistics to arrive at optimal solution to solve complex problems. So OR uses various techniques of mathematics, statistics and theory of probability to arrive عشان تصل لشنو؟ to arrive at optimal solution، الحلول المثلى to solve complex problem، مشاكل معقدة complicated. It is basically concerned with أساسا في الأصل تهتم بتحديد the maximum profit and the minimum losses or cost. It concentrates in profit maximization and losses minimization، تعظيم الربح وتدنئة التكاليف. To maximize profit تعظيم الربح، sales مبيعات، output المخرجات، efficiency الكفاءة، effectiveness الفعالية، and to minimize losses risks مخاطر، costs تكاليف and time of some objective function. The primary tools used by operation research are mathematics, statistics and theory of probability These three aspects we name them as quantitative aspect or quantitative approaches, which are used in the process of application the methods of operations research. History of operations research. There is no clear history that marks the birth of OR. ما في تاريخ محدد لظهور بحوث العمليات. It is generally accepted that the field originated in England during the WW2. يعني قبل أن ظهور هذا العلم بدأ في إنجلترا during أبان الحرب العالمية الثانية. Some say that Charles Babbage, the father of OR, because his research into the cost of transportation and sorting of mail led to England's university. طيب. Modern operations research originated as the Boats Research Station in UK in 1938 to analyze and improve the working of the UK early warning radar system. ونظام الرادار اللي استخدم في الحرب العالمية الثانية. During the second WW, about 1,000 men and women were engaged work for British Army. After WW2, military operational research in UK became operational analysis within the UK Ministry of Defence. With expanded techniques and growing awareness. No, generally we can say that
7 days.
the roots of operations research is England, UK, United of Kingdom. It is United of Kingdom. So the transformation from military sector to civilian sector after the end of WW2. The characteristics or features of operations research. Decision making and decision taking. خصائص ووظائفها إنها صناعة القرار واتخاذ القرار. is a scientific approach, أسلوب علمي. is quantitative approach, أسلوب كمي. qualitative approach، أسلوب نوعي. interdisciplinary team approach، يتداخل مع علوم أخرى. أو system approach، use of computers. objective constraints and condition. OR is based on objectives أهداف constraints قيود and conditions شروط. It calculates also the human factor. These are the main characteristics of OR. The main characteristic, of course, we forgot problem solving also is the main characteristic of OR. Decision making. Decision is a process of making choices among various alternatives. القرار هو عبارة عن عملية لاختيار وسط مجموعة من البدائل أو مختلف البدائل. The main we describe decision as a process. It is a process of what? Of choice. عملية اختيار. We face various decisions. To take an optimal decision among various alternatives is depending upon the process of making. How to do so? By identifying a decision. Identification or decision identification. حديد الغرض. Gathering information and assessing alternative solution. This also shortly is known as steps of decision making process. Problem identification, gathering information or data, criteria determination, choice of the best alternative according to the criteria, implement and monitoring the solution. Every organization faces multifaceted problems. To identify best possible solution to their problems, OR aims to help the executives to obtain optimal solution with the use of OR techniques. So the techniques of OR helps managers to make and to take an optimal solution among various alternatives of solutions. It also helps the decision maker to improve his creativity and judicious capabilities. Analyze and understand the problem situation, leading to better control, better coordination, better systems, and finally better decisions. Okay. Let me formulate the phases of decisions making using the following questions. Is there a problem? the recognition of problem existence. اعتراف بأن هنالك مشكلة. What are the alternative design? Is there a problem? Intelligence, search, looking for. What are the alternatives? Design the system of choice of the best alternatives using the criteria. What is the best solution? Choice. Is the solution working? Implementation. How to know that is the best solution? By the process of implementation. By the process of implementation. So we can gather the decision making steps through these four questions. Scientific approach or method. The scientific method is an empirical method, أسلوب تجريبي, for acquiring knowledge, لاكتساب المعرفة, أسلوب تجريبي لاكتساب المعرفة, that has characterized the development of science. Scientific approach is a accumulation of experiments, empirical methods, past experiments, for acquiring knowledge, to enrich knowledge that has characterized as a development of science, evolution of science. The basic process involves making an observation, forming a hypothesis, فرضيات, making a prediction, تنبؤ, conducting an experiment, and finally analyzing the result. So we can define scientific approach as an empirical methods for what? Acquisition, knowledge that has characterized the evolution or development of science, تطور العلم. OR applies scientific methods, techniques, and tools for the purpose of analysis and solution of complex problems. Unit is that all time we mention the complex problem. OR faces the complex problem in order to solve it. In this manner, there is no place for guesswork and the person bias of the decision maker. Five steps are considered to highlight the scientific approach. These 5 questions help us to understand the essence of scientific approach. Define a questions. Making predictions. Gather data. Analyze data. Conduct conclusion. Conduct conclusion. These are known as the 5 steps of scientific approach, or the combination of these 5 questions create a scientific approach. So scientific approach include the definition of question, making predictions, gathering data or data gathering, data analysis, and conclusion conducting. These are known as a phase approach. Interdisciplinary team approach. Basically, the industrial problems are of complex nature and therefore require a team effort to handle it. This team comprises of scientists, mathematicians, and technocrats who jointly use OR tool to obtain an optimal solution for the problem. يعني التيم الذي يقوم بتطبيق حلول بحوث العمليات ويجمع مختلف العلماء، علماء في مجال الرياضيات، السياسيين، التكنوقراط، الفنيين، وهكذا. They tries to analyze the causes and effect relationship between various parameters of the problem and evaluates the outcome of various alternative strategy. So the team which is responsible of application of the OR recommendations must comprise various specialists, scientists, and technocrats. The main goals of team is how to implement the solution recommended by OR team. System approach. The term implies that each problem should be examined each problem should be examined. اي مشكلة المفروض نختبرها in its entirely ابتداء to extent possible and economically visible from the point of view of the overall system of which the problem under consideration is the one part. Select the problem among the whole systems which contain or consist of various complicated systems or part of that system. The main aim هدف الأساس of the system approach is to trace out all significant and indirect effects. نتابع كل الآثار الغير مباشرة والمباشرة significant أساسية مهمة for each proposal on all subsystem on a system and to evaluate each action in terms of effects for the system as a whole. The interrelationship and interaction of each subsystem can be handled with the help of mathematical analytical models of OR to obtain acceptable solution. There are types of system approach. System dynamics, viable system model, and strategic option of development and analysis. These three types of system approach: dynamism, viable system model, strategic option of development and analysis. The methodologies of OR: orientation, problem definition, data collection, model formulation, solution, analysis and information, implementation and monitoring. Orientation, problem definition, data collection, model formulation, solution, analysis and information, implementation. الملاحظ انه الحاجات دي مشتقة stopped with other characteristics، يعني مشتقة مع بعضها، يعني you can find it among the characteristics of OR. You can find it among the nature when we describe the nature of OR. So that means these are the base, the fundament of OR. Steps of solution. Many definitions have been suggested. The question of how to define OR. There is no collective definition. Actually, scientists give various definitions of OR or of operation research. Here we will try to suggest 5 definitions which are assumed to be very suitable to our objectives or tasks. OR is a scientific method of providing executive department with a quantitative basis for optimal decision. Morse and Kimball. So, how to deliver a scientific method to departments with a quantitative basis. In order to take an optimal decision, putting into account the problem of scarcity. This definition recognizes that fact that operation research is based on a quantitative method. Quantitative methods could be broken into 3 branches: mathematics, statistics, and theory of probability. A very attractive definition denotes that OR is the art of giving bad answers to problems to which otherwise worse answers are given. That means easier to capture bad answers or worse one in case of not applying the operation research methods. OR also is defined as a scientific approach to problem solving for executive manager. H.M. Wagner. This definition recognizes the importance or the significance of the scientific approach. How to use the scientific approach in the process of problem solving, actually in the process of decision making and decision taking. Miller and Starr articulate that OR is applied decision theory. Or the application of decision theory. Decision theory is a decision that uses various concepts to be applied in the sphere of various sectors in order to take an optimal decision. OR also is the application of modern methods of mathematical science to complex problem. Okay. The common feature or the common characteristic between these various definitions is a recognition of the significance of the quantitative methods as the tool of providing operation research. نتحدث عن 5 تعاريف لبحوث العمليات. ما يجمع هذه التعاريف ال5 هو الاعتراف بأهمية المدخل الكمي. المدخل الكمي يقصد به كيفية استخدام الرياضيات ونظرية الاحتمالات ونظرية الإحصاء في اتخاذ القرار الأمثل بمعلومية ندرة الموارد. هي توليفة من اتخاذ القرارات الإدارية مع توليفة من الرياضيات ونظرية الإحصاء ونظرية الاحتمالات مع توليفة من النظرية الاقتصادية. OR is considered as the branch of quantitative methods. OR is a scientific method of providing executive department with the quantitative methods. OR is the art of giving bad answers to problems to which otherwise worse answers are given. OR is a scientific approach to problem solving. OR is applied معناه تطبيقي. نظرية القرار التطبيقية. Miller and Starr. OR is application of modern methods of mathematical science to complex problems بشكل معقدة. These 5 definitions are quite enough to clarify the main features and characteristics of operation research. Phases of operations research. There are 6 important steps in the process of applying OR. لدينا 6 خطوات مهمة عندما نقوم بتطبيق أساليب بحوث العمليات المختلفة. We know that each company faces some problems. In order to solve this problem, or in order to take an optimal decision to solve this problem, the first step is to define the problem. Other artists say that firstly we have to recognize that the firm faces problem. The second step after the recognition of the problem is to define the problem. بعض الشركات تعمل على إخفاء المشاكل اللي بتواجهها، وهذا يعيق إمكانية اتخاذ القرار الأمثل، ولذلك يجب الاعتراف بأن الشركة أو المؤسسة تواجه مشكلة. The next is to define the problem. نعرف المشكلة. its nature and its nature طبيعة المشكلة. its nature, its characteristics خصائص هذه المشكلة. features يجب أن نعرف المشكلة، نعرف طبيعة هذه المشكلة وخصائص هذه المشكلة. So the second step is to analyze and define the problem. هي تعريف المشكلة أولا ثم تحليلها ومعرفة خصائص هذه المشكلة. The third step that to list various criteria to choose a sufficient alternative. عادة الشركات تضع عدة بدائل لاستخدامها لحل المشكلة المعينة. various companies design various alternatives to solve the problem. Before that, we have to define or to list the criteria of efficient alternative. يجب أن نضع المعايير التي على أساسها نحدد الخيار الأمثل لحل هذه المشكلة. or to develop a model, then to develop a model نقوم بتطوير نموذج لحل هذه المشكلة من خلال اختيار البيانات كويس، وعلى هذا الأساس نقوم باختيار accordingly we are going to choose the alternatives that suitable to solve the problem of that company. Then we are going to provide a solution and test it. الخطوة اللي بعدها to implement the solution، نقوم بتنفيذ هذا الحل أو بتطبيق هذا الحل. ثم to monitor and evaluate the output of that solution. بعد ذلك نقوم بشنو؟ بمراقبة وتقييم النتائج المترتبة على تطبيق أو تنفيذ الحل أو البديل. إذن لدينا عدة خطوات يجب وضعها في الاعتبار عند تطبيق أساليب البرمجة الخطية. هنا نتحدث عن المشاكل. أولا الاعتراف بوجود مشكلة. ثانيا تعريف هذه المشكلة وتعريف خصائصها ومميزاتها وطبيعتها. تحديد المعايير التي على أساسها نقوم باختيار البديل الذي يناسب حل هذه المشكلة. نقوم باختيار البديل الأمثل الذي يتناسب مع الحل هذه المشكلة، وبعد ذلك نطور نموذج على أساس تلك المعايير والبديل المتخذ لحل هذه المشكلة، ونميت هذه النموذج بالبيانات. ثم نقوم بتطبيق هذا الحل ونراقب هذا الحل ونقوم بتقييمه. ما ذكر قد يختلف من مرجع إلى مرجع آخر، لكن هذه الخطوات الست أيضا تعتبر خطوات لتطبيق نماذج البرمجة الخطية. The main tool in providing or applying the models or methods of operations research is known as linear programming أو أسلوب البرمجة الخطية، وهو أسلوب رياضي بيهدف إلى تخصيص الموارد النادرة بطريقة أمثل. Linear programming is a mathematical technique aims to optimal allocation of scarce resources. aims يهدف إلى شنو؟ to optimal allocation of scarce resources. optimal allocation of scarce resources اللي هي تخصيص الموارد النادرة بطريقة أمثل. طيب using two objectives، تخصيص الموارد بطريقة أمثل باستخدام هدفين اللي هو easier to maximize profit أو نقوم بتعظيم الربح or to minimize cost أو نقوم بتدمئة التكاليف. إذن the main aspect of linear programming, the main aspects of linear programming, the main goals of linear programming are two: profit maximization or cost minimization، تعظيم الربح أو تدمئة التكاليف. So each, in order to apply the main tasks of linear programming, so there are three components. These three components are known as the components of linear programming. Actually, here we are talking about the application of linear programming model. هنا المكونات الثلاثة للبرمجة الخطية هي عبارة عن objective function دالة الهدف، constraint القيود، و non-negativity condition اللي هي شرط عدم السلبية. So, in order to design a linear programming model، إذا أردنا تصميم نموذج برمجة خطية يجب أن يحتوي هذا النموذج على ثلاثة مكونات: دالة الهدف objective function، القيود اللي هي constraints، ثم شرط عدم السلبية أو non-negativity condition. So we will pass these three components separately. The first component is objective function اللي هي دالة الهدف. Let's define what do we mean by objective function. Objective function is a linear equation to maximize profit or to minimize cost. يعني as we mentioned before, linear programming has two goals اللي هي عندها هدفين: تعظيم الربح أو تدنئة التكاليف. ولذلك دالة الهدف بيتضمن هدفين اللي هو هدف التعظيم وهدف التدنئة، وبالتالي لدينا دالتين للهدف: دالة تعظيم الربح ودالة تدنئة التكاليف. max z equals c1 x1 plus c2 x2 up to cn xn represents the problem of profit maximization. Max stands for maximization, C1 and C2 up to Cn stands for the profit of 1 unit of product. What that means, C1 is the profit of 1 unit of product X1, C2 is the profit of 1 unit of X2, and Cn is the profit of 1 unit of Xn. So actually, as we mentioned before, objective function is a linear equation. A linear equation معادلة خطية. X1 and X2 and Xn are known as products or decision variable. X1 X2 Xn عبارة عن سلع، وتعرف أيضا بمتغيرات القرار. طيب، in case of minimization objective، إذا كان لدينا of minimization function min z equals c1 x1 plus c2 x2 plus up to cn xn. Min here stands for minimization, while c1 c2 up to cn stands for what here? For the cost of 1 unit. C1 in case of minimization is the cost of 1 unit of product x1, c2 is the cost of 1 unit of product x2, cn is the cost of 1 unit of product xn. Min represents objective function of minimization. here عندما نكتب ماين قاصدين دالة تدنية التكاليف. الفرق بين دالة التعظيم ودالة التدنية C1 و C2 و Cn في دالة التدنية عبارة عن تكلفة إنتاج الوحدة من السلعة. X1 و X2 و Xn أيضا في هذه الحالة عبارة عن products أو سلع، وأيضا نطلق عليها متغيرات الغرض. هنا قمنا بتصميم دالة الهدف بالنموذجين. Now we design, almost designed as shown, we design two functions, or actually design two objective functions. Objective function of minimization and objective function of maximization. Number 2, constraints, and number 3, non-negativity condition. We said that linear programming problem contains 3 components: objective function, constraints, and non-negativity condition. دالة الهدف، القيود، وشرط عدم السلبية. Constraints are the linear inequalities or equation on the variables of a linear programming. القيود عبارة عن متباينات أقل من أو يساوي أو أكبر من أو يساوي and equations معادلات في نظام البرمجة الخطية. Objective function, as stated before, has two forms: easier to maximize profit or to minimize cost. If the objective function is a maximized function, then the constraints will be equal or less. إذا كان دالة الهدف دالة التعظيم فإن القيد دائما يكون أقل من أو يساوي. In case of minimization, the constraints will be more or equal. في حالة الكوست أو التدنئة بيكون القيد أكبر من أو يساوي. Let us take the following example. Subject 2. What that means? The implementation or application of objective function is subject to, is restricted by what? By the satisfaction of the following constraints. For example, the constraints of my maximization is like A11 x1. A11 stands for the cost of 1 unit of x1. A12 x2. A12 is the cost of 1 unit of x2. In the first phase, less or equal P1. P1 is a resources available for phase 1. Let me explain. For example, if the production of a certain product passes two phases, phase 1 and phase 2, then the constraints should equal to, if the process of production consists of 3 phases or 4 phases respectively, the constraints should be 3 or 4. X1 and X2 indicate that the decision variable contains 3 products, X1 and X2. B1, B2 up to Bn are available resources. These resources may be electricity, time, raw materials, etc. In case of minimization, we are going to change the inequality only from less or equal to more or equal. القيود في دالة التعظيم عادة بتكون أقل من أو يساوي، أما القيود في دالة التدنئة أو المينيمايزيشن بتكون أكبر من أو يساوي. The last component is non-negativity condition. X1, X2 more or equal 0. This condition shows that easier to produce or not to produce, x1 or x2. To produce means more than 0, not to produce equal 0. Therefore, this condition easier to be more than 0 indicates the process of production is going, or equal 0, or equal 0. 3 components: objective function دالة الهدف, constraint القيود, and non-negativity condition اللي هي شرط عدم السلبية. Now we would like to check how to formulate a linear programming problem. Option of profit maximization. Please follow the example. A manufacturer makes two products, X1 and X2. مصنع بينتج سلعتين هما X1 و X2. The first requires إنتاج السلعة X1 requires 5 hours for processing, 5 ساعات للمعالجة, 3 for assembling, 3 ساعات للتركيب, and 4 for packing. The demand now, while X2 demands 2 for processing, 12 for assembling, and 8 for packing. طيب في حين انه السلعة X2 بتطلب ساعتين للبروسيسنج معالجة, 12 ساعة للتركيب, و8 ساعات للتعليق. The plant has 40 hours for processing, 60 hours for assembling, and 80 hours for packing. The profit margin for X1 is $7, while the profit margin for X2 is $20. Now, let's check the givens and requirement. The givens are 2. Company produces 2 products, X1 and X2. The production of 2 products passes 3 phases. بتمر عبر 3 مراحل. passes 3 phases. الفيز بتاع processing, assembling, and packing. The expected level of profit is $7 for 1 unit of X1 and $21 of 1 unit of X2. Now, so this linear programming problem reflects objective of maximization, where max z equals 3x1 plus 21x2 is an objective function subject to three constraints: 51x1 plus 2x2 for processing. So what that means, 1 unit of x1 costs 5 units and 1 unit of x2 costs 2 units. Where? In the phase 1. In the phase 2 assembling, 1 unit of x1 will cost us 3 units and 1 unit of x2 will cost us 12. The last is 1 unit cost us 4 and 1 unit of x2 cost us $8. The total resources available for phase 1 or the phase of processing is 40 hours only. So the total quantity of x1 and total quantity of x2 on the phase 1 should not cost us more than 40 hours. The phase 2 not more than 60 hours. In the phase 3 not more than 48 hours. The last component is non-negativity condition, where x1 comma x2 should be equal or more than 0. The second version of linear programming problem is how to formulate an objective function of minimization. Let us follow the following example of minimization. A nutritionist wishes her client بتاع التغذية wish her client to have a daily 30 units of vitamin A, 20 units of vitamin D, and 24 units of vitamin A. What that means? That means nutritionist has a total unit of vitamin A equal 30. Total units of vitamin D equal 20 milligram, and D equals to 24 units. This is a stock available for nutritionists. Now, so let's see the combination y1 and combination y2. The combination y1 should consist of 2 units of vitamin A, 5 units of vitamin D, and 2 units of vitamin A, E. The total cost of combination y1 equal $80. From the next hand, combination y2 contains 6 units of vitamin A, 1 unit of vitamin D, and 3 units of vitamin E. The stock is 30 units of vitamin A, 20 units of vitamin D, and 24 units of vitamin E. The cost of combination Y2 equal 160. Please follow the diagram to understand the division and classification or breakdown of the problem. So here we have statement which determine the nature of linear programming problem. The statements talks about cost once, and therefore we have to formulate a problem of minimization. The objective function have to express problem of minimization. Objective function consists of two costs per units of combination, $80 for y1 and $160 for y2. Nutritionist faces 3 vitamins respectively. We have to design 3 constraints. One constraint for vitamin A, other constraint for vitamin D, and the third constraint for vitamin E. The last part of the components of LP is non-negativity condition y1, y2 more or equal 0. Refer notice. Refer to the previous problem of minimization. Objective function is a minimization function. Therefore, it consists of the cost of 1 unit of combination y1 or y2. Constraints are formulated as an expression of each vitamin. Respectively, the objective function is min z equal 80 y1 plus 160 y2. $80 and $160 are the cost of 1 unit of each combination respectively. This is known as objective function for minimization. This objective function should minimize the cost of production of combination 1 and combination 2. This objective should be applicable if and only if the following three constraints are satisfied. Two y1 plus 6y2 more or equal 30. This constraint expresses of vitamin A. So vitamin A costs 2 in the first combination and equal 6 in the next combination. So 2 units is the cost of y1 and 6 units is the cost of y2. Available quantity of vitamin A is 30 m. The second constraint stands for vitamin D. The cost of y1 of vitamin D 5 units. The cost of vitamin D for y2 equal 1. The total available quantity is 20 milli. The last constraint expresses the cost of vitamin E, where in this combination the cost of 1 unit of y1 equal 2 units and for y2 equal 3. The total available quantity of vitamin E for nutritionists is 24 units. The last component is non-negativity condition, where y1 comma y2 either equal 1 or greater than 1, greater than 0 or equal 0. This is the last how to formulate a LP program, linear programming problem, which include objective function, constraints, and non-negativity condition. Usually manager takes decision under 4 conditions. دائما الإداريين بيتخذوا قرارات في 4 حالات: under certainty في حالة التأكد، under uncertainty في حالة عدم التأكد، under risk في حالة المخاطرة، و under conflict في حالة النزاع أو الصراع. We consider that taking decision under certainty suitable approach for the deterministic method, while the remains under uncertainty and under risk and under conflict suitable for the stochastic methods. The differences between stochastic methods and deterministic methods. The deterministic approach depends on clear and certain information and data. Is also suitable for linear programming. Usually under uncertainty and under risk and under conflict, use the theory of probability. Linear programming has three components: objective function, constraint, and non-negativity condition. The objective functions easier to maximize profit or to minimize cost. The constraints of maximization are inequalities, which are equal or less than available resources, while of minimization are equal or more. Non-negativity condition indicates that the quantity of products equal or more than 0.